Hi, this is Suhail here. Today we'll talk about the topic work. Now, we have used this word, I'm sure, definitely we have used this word in our day-to-day conversation with various people. Now, let's turn around and look some of these pictures that I have prepared. This first picture that you see here is the picture of a person reading a book or a paper. Now, this is a very familiar situation, and you can compare this with your work that you claim that you have done. I'm sure that you have read so many times, and most of the times you feel that you have done work. But unfortunately, in physics, this is not recognized as work. Now, in physics, for the work to be recognized, you do require some kind of a displacement or a distance being covered. What's important here is we have to keep in mind that there are a few conditions that have to met or that are required in order to recognize work. Now let's look at the second picture here. This person is trying to push this wall, and while doing so he is applying a force. So he is pushing this wall. This is the force that he is applying, but he is unable to push the wall. That's quite obvious. Even though a force is being applied here, work is not recognized because there is no distance or displacement covered. Just very similar to this first situation where there was no displacement being covered. So in physics, for the work to be recognized, you have to find situations wherein displacement or distance is being covered along with the force being applied. So here there is no work. Since there is no displacement, but there is certainly an amount of force that is being applied. But since there is no displacement, work is not recognized. In the first case, there is no work. Since there is no displacement or distance covered, maybe you would have applied force here to hold this paper. But since there is no distance that is covered, work is not recognized. Now let's go into another picture, another artwork. This is a very, very common situation that you come across. Yeah, look at this picture. Now here you have a person holding this book. So to hold this book, he has to support with the force. So the direction which he applies the force to hold it. So there is a force being applied. Then there is a displacement, in fact. So he starts moving towards the left in this direction. So there is a distance being covered. But in spite of this, there is no work here. As per physics, there is no work. So this must be really, creating a confusion in mind, or you must be asking, so as to what is work in physics? Now, there are three essential conditions that are required for the work to be recognized in physics. The first one is the force has to be applied, like here. The second one is the distance has to be covered, which is like this in the case of a person carrying a book. But apart from these two, what is important is the force or the distance that we consider must be in the same direction. Now for this, in order to understand this rather, we have to go into another picture which is towards the bottom. Yeah, this picture. Here you have a person trying to move on this inclined plane. He starts from this point, lower point say A, and he ends the journey at this point which is B. So he is actually covering a distance S along this inclined plane. But while doing so, he is also covering a distance Z horizontally and a distance D vertically. Now, for the work to be recognized, as I told you that there has to be a distance covered, so there is a distance covered here. There has to be a force applied. There is a force applied. Person is lifting himself against his weight. So by applying a force vertically up. So this is a force is applied. Then there is a distance being covered. S is a distance covered. Z is a distance covered. D is a distance covered. But among these three, it is this distance that is covered along the direction of the force. So work is recognized when you have force being applied on a body, distance being covered, such that the force or the distance that is considered are in the same direction. So basically we end up with three conditions. One is the force has to be applied. The second one is the distance has to be covered. And the third one is the distance of the force that is being considered must be in the same direction. So let's develop a formula for work. So in physics, precisely work is defined as, so let me write here, work is defined as a product of force that's being applied multiplied by the distance that is covered. But what is more important is this force or the distance that we take must be in the same direction. So it's important to understand that there is a condition to apply this formula. You have to make a note that the force or the distance that is taken, that is considered, must be in the same direction. And we can easily find out what is the unit for work. Since the unit for force is 1 Newton, force is Newton, not 1 Newton. It is the Newton is the force represented by N. And since the unit for distance is meter in SI units rather, so the unit of force would be, unit of work would become Newton into meter, which is called as joule. So it means that 1 joule of work means 1 Newton of force being applied to cover a distance of 1 meter.